Welcome everyone. Today we're going to take what we learned about SOCV and how to describe data distributions and apply it to real AP exam style problems. So we're going to have to take SOCV, shape, outlier, center, variability, and write written responses in a way that will get us full credit. So I've gotten some problems from former exams or from practice exams, and we're going to go through them and make sure we can answer these properly. So let's look at this first example. 34 college students were asked how much money they spent on textbooks. Here's the stem plot. So based on the stem plot, write a few sentences describing the distribution of money spent on textbooks for the 34 students. Whenever I see describing the distribution, I know I need to do SOCV. So real quick, while I look at my data, let me go through those 4 characteristics and just jot down what I know I need to talk about. So S is for shape. Since it's a stem and leaf plot, I need to talk about if it's skewed, so I'm sort of drawing my kind of curve. So where is the tail? It definitely trails off this way towards the higher stem values. That means this is skewed right. O is for outliers. Now when I look at it, I do have that high value of 81. Again, we don't do the test, we just kind of eyeball it. So instead of saying there is an outlier at 81, I think there might be, so I'm just going to say potential at, and actually I shouldn't say 81 because let's come to our key. So what does that 81 actually stand for? It actually stands for $810. C is for center. Now since it's skewed, I know I should use the median as my center. I know there were 34 students, so if I divide that in half, I get 17. So if I count up 17 or count down 17, that'll get me to that midpoint line, and I'll average those two numbers together. So let me just go ahead. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So right there is that midpoint line. These are the two values I need to average together. So 280 and 290, that means I have a median at $285. Again, make sure you're using that key because if you said 28.5, you're not going to end up getting full credit. All right, and then finally that V for variability. Since it's a stem plot and I can see my max and my min, I'm going to use the range. So range is, and remember, we don't want an interval. So my smallest is 120. My biggest is 810. So that means my range is $690 when I subtract them. All right, now I'm actually going to add a plus under this because whenever you do this sort of AP exam style question, there's something else you have to add. You have to add context. So when I write out my final answer, I need to use the context of the problem at least once. So let's go ahead and actually write out our sentences and just make sure we make reference of everything in SOCV. So I'm going to start, and I always like to start by putting my context in the first sentence because then I won't forget. So the distribution of cost for textbooks is skewed right with a potential outlier at $810. So what have I covered so far? I've talked about the context, the distribution of cost for textbooks. I've talked about the shape, and then I've talked about the potential outlier. So you don't have to do separate sentences for each of these. You just need to make sure you hit all of them. So I still need to talk about the measure of center, and I still need to talk about the range. So the median is $285. So now I've talked about that. And finally, the range of the data is $690. And now I've talked about the variability. So I've talked about everything with SOCV. I made sure to include the context. So this right here is a full credit answer. If you can do that on any of our tests or on the AP exam, you're going to get full credit. Make sure you go through SOCV, make sure you mention the context. So I have one more example. All right, so here's my second example. I can see I have a histogram. It says the sizes in square feet of 20 rooms in a student residence hall at a university are summarized by this histogram. So based on the histogram, write a few sentences describing the distribution of room size. Describing distribution means SOCV. So again, SOCV plus, what's the context I'm talking about? I'm talking about room size. Oops, you can read my handwriting. Square feet. So let's go through real quick. What is the shape? Well, since it's a histogram, try to remember there's two things you should talk about: any skew and any modality. So if I think about, I've got a peak, it goes down and then goes back up. So that is definitely bimodal. And I would call that roughly symmetric. Right, this one is a little taller than this one, but otherwise it's pretty symmetric. As far as outliers, I don't see anything I would consider an outlier, so I'm just going to say none apparent. No apparent outliers. For center, all right, well, since it is a symmetric histogram, I want to use the mean. And I can't exactly figure it out because I don't have the data, so I know I need to say it's around or it's approximately, so I'm going to put that little symbol so I can remember that. So I know the mean should be somewhere towards the middle of this data set, right? Because this would be where it goes through the middle. So any sort of estimate around this range from, I guess, 225 up to maybe around 250, that would be fine. So the mean is around, why don't I say 230 feet squared. I promise you, if you say 240, it'll be fine. If you say 225, it'll be fine. They give you a pretty wide range when it's something like this. Not super wide, but usually as long as it's in this bar or maybe right at 250, they'll give it to you. All right, now variability. Again, this was something that we can't tell exactly because we don't have the data. So I say split the difference. So we're going to say in the middle of that would be 325. And then in the middle of this bar would be 125, and we need to subtract. So that's going to give us range is approximately 200 square feet. So now I've gone through SOCs and I have everything I need to talk about. So let me just write out a few sentences. So the distribution of, and I'm going to do my context here, room size in square feet at the residence hall is bimodal and roughly symmetric. Then there are no apparent outliers. The mean size is around 230 square feet, and the range is around 200 square feet. So let's go through. I talked about the context, then I talked about the shape, both parts, no apparent outliers, the mean was around 230, the variability was around 200. So I've done everything through SOCV and then also with the context I need to talk about, so this would be a full credit answer. So now we've gone through how we take the elements of SOCV and write them out into full exam responses using sentences. There's going to be another short video showing you how you compare distributions on the AP exam. and then you'll have some practice problems to complete. Please just let me know if you have any questions on this.